Agent Academy, Episode 0, recorded on October 25th, 2017. I'm Agent Soho.
And I'm Agent Goonie Guy. And we've got a special episode today all about clean ingress and the Brokers Guild.
That's right. This is the whistleblowers that came out and announced to the world that there are a secret society, or well, really just like a secret group of web scraping terms of use violators.
Yeah.
There is a video on this channel on the Agent Academy that runs down the details of what the claims are. You can watch that here on this channel, and we have an interview. First time they've ever shown their face. They're going to explain how it started, what happened, their ethical views on cheating, and all that kind of good stuff. Answer some questions that people have levied towards them as well, and we threw some of our own questions at them, and stay tuned and hear what they have to say. All right, let's get them on. I'm here with Eric and Charlie. How are y'all doing?
Good. Super.
And y'all are known in the game of Ingress as, we'll start with Eric.
thePrevaricator.
And Charlie?
I'm Semiotiq.
Semiotiq. And y'all's names have kind of come out in the past couple of days because of some crazy, I don't know if you call it drama, but stuff going down in the community.
I would call it drama, yeah.
Definitely drama.
Yeah.
And a thing called clean ingress. So I don't know if y'all could kind of give us an idea of what that is and why y'all are involved with it.
Eric?
Sure. So clean ingress is well, really it's a creation of necessity. So an opportunity presented itself for us to take some information we were given from an unlikely and anonymous source and either make that public or keep it to ourselves. And that the second wasn't really a choice. So out of that, we put some people together, some people who we knew would be able to help us publish it, help us try to handle it responsibly. And I don't know that there was even a full decision, but we decided to call it clean ingress.
Nice. So, and this is the first time that you've spoken to anyone about this, like showing your face and everything, right? Out in public?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Charlie, but short of, showing up at cross-faction events, which I think everybody does, but no.
Oh, cool. Well, so you said you were presented this information from, let's say, a whistleblower, and you furthered this information. You put it on the internet. You created this website. But if you rewind just a little bit, was there some sort of like a defining moment that that clicked in your head and motivated you to show the world?
So I received the information originally. The resistance agent who's involved in this network decided to spill the beans comprehensively and offered me the opportunity to receive that information. And it took a very short period of time to include a number of people I trust, and we talked about it internally and decided we were going to move forward. And I don't think it took more than 10 hours to decide exactly how we were going to publish.
But a lot of that was informed by what we saw. I mean, we didn't have a plan going into it, right? The first message was just, I have information. I want to talk to somebody. And then once we saw the screenshots from the inside, then that dictated our response.
Yeah, I mean, there were revelatory moments, to be sure. The information is really profound. This isn't just about guardian hunting. That's the least of it. I mean, this is about fundamental personal identifying information rights violations. So once we really understood the scope and the severity of the situation, that's, I think, when it became more profound for us.
Right. Were you ever Were you reluctant to put it out, thinking that maybe you would be attacked personally, or did you ever feel that you were in danger?
I mean, from identity threats,
Right.
yes, and from in-game concerns, maybe. But it was a big-ish group, and I don't mean to speak for everybody, but I didn't have a lot of concern about that. I mean, my Ingress community, both Resistance and Enlightened, are pretty reasonable most of the time. I wasn't worried about you showing up at my house.
Right.
If you read the transcript, you'll see that we talked frequently about the importance of locking down personal infosec. I mean, nobody was under the delusion that the information was going to remain private, and I think we advertised pretty early on to the entire group that, like, you're probably going to be exposed as having been a part of this, and you need to protect yourself. So there were some clear risks, and those are ongoing. I mean, there are some bad, smart people who are deeply invested in protecting these privileges who have been coming after us in retaliation.
And with that, I mean, there was a release just moments ago, actually, of information about people who did riot and stuff like that. So they're kind of getting the other side of their data getting out there as well. Like, what do y'all think about that side of it?
I think it's terrible in a sense that there's somebody now who has their personal information published, even if they did a thing that somebody could say justifies it. But at the end of the day, that's a person with family and kids and, you know, who knows what, right? Like, I don't want to know a bunch about that agent. It could have potentially been handled a different way. There were minor details that we published along with agent IDs. You know, people had accidentally put, I shouldn't say accidentally, people had put in places we didn't expect things like their email address or their Gmail or their G+ link. And we ended up going back and redacting those because we felt bad about giving that level of identification. The amount of doxing that the owner is currently receiving is beyond the pale.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, we're talking about the thing that very recently came out with the publication of the DNS information research that reveals the identity of the person who created the Riot network, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so doxing is revealing personal identifying information about somebody on purpose in an attempt to hurt them. And it's not okay and shouldn't be done. I think that's our stance.
I'm glad that somebody's being held accountable. I'm not okay with the way it was done.
Which is kind of goes to a lot of what, like, all of this kind of surrounds is the whole, you know, cheating and what's considered cheating, and what actually Riot did. And I know y'all talked about that. You don't think people are really understanding exactly what is going on there with Riot with some pieces of it. Can you explain some of that, what you think people are missing, like the most harmful pieces, that the most troubling?
You can start on that one, Charlie, if you want.
Yeah, so at the base level, people are going to say, well, this is just a Guardian hunting engine. It's a way of scraping information about Guardians so that people can Guardian hunt, and that involves the badge, right? And that's certainly true. That is a component of it. But if you dig into the documentation on riot.1, it's available on the brokersguild.wordpress.com website, you'll see that it's possible to do much, much more troubling things with the tools that have been made available. You can literally track every single action that's been done by an agent in real time. You can create dossiers, they call them digests, where any action taken by an agent immediately goes directly to you. So, I mean, think about that for a second as a stalking tool. There are things that generate heat maps of your most common locations. There are things that predict your home location. There are tools designed to identify the location from which you produce any comms message, even if it's on your own faction comms. This is an incredibly comprehensive suite of tools for stalking somebody through Ingress. It's a violation of the personal trust of all of the players who have chosen to play the game. When we sign up to play, we agree that it's okay for Niantic to know that, right? That's a a contract between us and Niantic because they're a corporation with legal liability and a certain amount of responsibility, and we choose to trust that. We're not assigning that to every player in the game, and that's the real problem here.
Right.
And go ahead.
Comm messages were what struck me, and I think struck a lot of people in the chat logs. As our own people trying to understand what had happened, what the information we were being given was, they were getting, sick. They were getting upset. They were getting anxious, because where do you send most of your comm messages from? Where do you open your scanner and send a message to your other agents on faction comms? If it's a happy birthday, if it's a whatever, you send it from home. And they had a way to triangulate any comm message and store it and provide a heat map. And it does not take a lot of time doing that to produce a pretty accurate guess of where your house is.
It's pretty creepy. So let's talk about who is involved, because it's said that there's some higher ups that were involved here, some Anomaly POCs, Vanguards. That seems all right. I mean, not okay, but it's reasonable to believe that. But Niantic employees too. What is there any proof of that?
I want to say I don't know about Eric's position on this, but I'm not sure that that's anything that we want to get into. This is about the things that happened,
right,
and the things that are possible, not the people who did them.
And I'm happy to say that yes, we're certain that there was an Niantic employee on the list, not specifically who that was, and that we don't know what the repercussions of that are. We don't know if they were there with some kind of tacit approval, if they were not there with some kind of tacit approval, and speculating on it isn't helpful. So I think that there are certain non-official players, I shouldn't say non-official, certain players who have been given some level of recognition within the game, Vanguards, trusted reporters, other systems like that, that you can say they violated their trust with Niantic and probably shouldn't hold those positions. But Niantic will make that decision on a case-by-case basis, and I don't know what that'll be.
It's also worth saying that if there's some kind of connection and Niantic was aware that this tool existed for any period of time, they've got some problems to fix and they need to do it swiftly.
Well, and I guess that's the angle that I think is kind of troubling to me is either way. Either they had an employee that was doing things without the knowledge of the company, or they were doing things with the knowledge of the company, whether that's to try to block holes like that and keep data from going out, and maybe they'll let us know one way or the other. But like you said, if that's kind of going on, it's kind of troubling either way, because it needed to be stopped if that information is getting out, and we'll see eventually if that does. But leading that's led a lot of Resistance players to ask or deflect, talk about that Enlightened does the same kinds of things with tools in the past, names of things like Cactus and Pop-Tart and different tools that are out there. Even I think I've seen mention of like Andrew Krug. I don't even know how to say his name. Krug.
The current
he's manager? Like worked on these tools or something before he worked at Niantic. I don't know how true that is either, but so like those tools are out there. Like, do y'all think they should be taking a bigger stance on tools in general? I mean, we got IITC, which it seems like everybody kind of thinks that's okay, but it still breaks the TOS technically. Like, so what do y'all say about, I guess, ENL doing the same things and Niantic's stance on all of it?
You want me to start that one, Charlie?
I mean, yeah, I think we both have a lot of things to say. Why don't you take one part and I'll take the next part.
Okay. So creating a system where everyone is breaking the rules is not sustainable. We can't have an environment in which everyone is given carte blanche because the rule is one thing, right? Which is anybody who violates terms of service. But everyone is violating terms of service with IITC, and it's tacitly approved. So then where does the line lie, right? And I believe that it's there. I don't think that that means that, you know, all scraping is acceptable or all spoofing is allowed, or, you know, anything beyond that. Every tool needs to be evaluated for what it does and how it does it. But we need to make sure that the things that are definitely okay, the things that Niantic has given us the okay on, are actually then reflected in the documentation, so that we're not all made cheaters by the letter of the law.
We need clear rules, period. There are certainly tools on the ENL side as well. This is not a factional issue anymore. We know anecdotally that they exist. Some people have started to say some things. We know that a difference that exists between the resistance tools and the Enlightened tools is that the resistance have placed a higher value on the propagation of those tools from early on. And they're just very technically savvy. So they've done an extremely good job of distributing their network. So if there's a difference, it's that the resistance have embraced the use of these more aggressively, as far as we can tell. If we had information on the ENL stuff, we'd release it. And if anyone wants to send to us, like, you can find the inbox on the website. We're not hard to find.
It's a hard case to make, right? Because we're both enlightened, and we want you to believe us when we say that there is no one that we're aware of in any major way that is using these tools. There are corners. There are places where people bend the rules. There are places where people say, well, it's okay because they do it too, or whatever. You know, the same kind of things that we've seen in the public G+ posts. I'm not saying that everyone is absolutely clean, but there is not as cultural acceptance of these major terms of service violations in any part of the Enlightened that I'm aware of. And where there is, we need to stop it. Like, if there is any that, because I certainly don't, you know, talk to every agent on the planet or anything, but where that is, both sides need to be diligent in pursuing their own, I don't know, clean play, I guess.
It's not a resistance versus Enlightened issue anymore. It's about the choices that people make in the game, and those factions are emerging too. There are people who want to protect their privilege and their access to these tools and continue to use them, and then there are those who don't. And I think that's more than anything what the divide is now. It's not factional anymore, not really.
Well, and I think that's the main problem, is there's that line in the sand and we don't know where it is, and it keeps shifting because one side creates a tool, then the other side creates a tool that does that same thing, adds something new to it, then the other, like the next tool will probably be an ENL tool that's even bigger and better than that one, right? Like, it's going to just keep going back and forth, and we can say that no, it won't, because we want to believe that our friends and other people wouldn't do it. But the fact is, we've got a lot of really smart people on ENL, just like Resistance, so we can't say that that won't happen, but we need to stop it if it does, or figure out what that line is, because it's like you said, it's the TOS is the TOS. So where do y'all draw that line? I guess, like, personally, but with y'all.
So when we talk about gray areas, sorry, Eric, I'm jumping in here.
Sorry.
Like, I have a brief point to make. Like, we're not, when you talk about IITC versus something like Riot, you're not comparing apples to apples. IITC is a pocket knife. The worst thing in it is player tracker. In the stock, I'm talking about the plugins that are available on the IITC website that Niantic has been comfortably overlooking for years and has recently said that, like, we're kind of sort of okay with it, right? The worst thing in that is player tracker, and I think it stores player location data for 3 hours, indicating the portal that they were at when they performed a comms facing action. So, you know, like performed an attack or something, not upgrading a resonator or deploying a mod, but something that actually displays a message in comms.
So that's just visualizing the text. But.
Right. So, and that holds it for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Right? It's a pocket knife. Riot is attack nuke.
Right, right, and I get that, but it's just as easy for me to take that data off. It's a difference between storing data and seeing a data that's going to go away in 3 hours. Like you can still store the data and figure it out later, right? So
it's about aggregation and it's about persistence.
So we have really bright developers, like you said. We have people who can do these things, and in some places maybe have, but they're not public within the Enlightened. There's not everybody's in a social club, and the social club is organized around this terms of service violating process. There's no, there's no factional acceptance of it. And that difference alone is enormous, right? Because it makes it from 900 to 15,000 people using it on one side to, I couldn't speculate on the numbers, but it means that the problem remains contained, at least, that it stays in the shadows, that the people who have access to it and use it are not accepted, that we can't just turn a blind eye. So I'm not saying that it's not there. I'm just saying I think that the fix won't be nobody ever gets smart enough to figure out how to make this work. People will figure out how to make it work. We need to, as a community, agree that we're not going to do it.
It can't be normalized behavior. And I think that's the problem that we've seen with the tool Riot, is that it's become a normal thing that happens in that faction.
Right. So I see it as a very tempting thing to get into by offering someone new features in the game, but only you are allowed to use these features, right? That's essentially what's happening here. It's very tempting. Would you guys ever be tempted to use something like this?
I not only was tempted, I mean, I admitted to it in what was now a publicly released chat log. I was given opportunities to get into things that, either were interesting to play with or gave me some slight edge, or I knew that, maybe I wasn't going to use it substantially, but I could, from time to time, use it for good purposes, or thought I could. And again, if you read the chat log, I've decided to leave all those things. It's not worth compromising the actual good things in the game that I feel happy about, that I feel proud of, like our fielding efforts, the things that that I put a ton of time into, and after those fields go up, we can feel proud of, can't be touched. They can't be compromised by the fact that I was curious one day and thought I would check out this new tool.
So what would you say to, the resistance players that say were outed using Riot, that kind of feel the same way, that were like, oh God, I didn't realize I was just in the chat. Like, we know that people could be in there just in a Slack channel, they got invited and weren't doing anything. But what would you say to the people over there on the resistance who were saying the same thing? And they're like, well, crap, now my name's out and I really didn't mean to do anything.
I would say, I hope you don't get banned. I don't think you deserve it. I don't necessarily think anybody deserves it. I don't want to see 800 resistance agents banned in a day. It would be pretty bad for Ingress.
Yeah. And I don't feel like we said that on the site.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying y'all did.
No, I know.
Well, but just to start the conversation, that's how I would lead. And I would say, understand that it's dirty, right? Understand the problems, do the research, understand it for yourself, and commit to not doing that again, please.
So do you think this kind of opens the door for some sort of cross-faction group? You can almost be like a honeypot, and you basically, look for these things happening on both your sides, and just to let people know, look, we're looking, and we have people actively trying to get into these things to then, whistleblow on you. So you're not safe. You can go try these tools all you want, but you're not safe in any tool. Like, would y'all be up for something like that, working together with resistance players?
Well, let me give you an analogy. So in my local cell, we had a cross-faction group for many, many years before I started the game. And that place was known for what it was. It was a place where you go and, it's 4chan in a hangout, right? It's the nastiest stuff. We can all offend each other. We can all say any, racist thing that we want to, any horrible thing that we want to, and we're all happy with it. That's what it is. It's a place I can go and do those things, right? And there's people who fought to defend that room. And then it didn't take too long where I had started and I had met some Resistance players in First Saturdays who didn't like it, who were like, this is not okay. This room is horrible. We don't want to have this be the way it is here anymore. And one day after it had gone too far, we finally decided, no, we're taking over. We kicked everybody out of the hangout, right? We emptied it out. We made a new one and called it Sportsmanlike Conduct. And the rules in there were, we're not going to engage in that. We're not going to do it on either side. The room held each other accountable. The Resistance held themselves accountable when they didn't follow the rules. We held ourselves accountable when we didn't follow the rules. There were transgressions here and there, but we all agreed what the new community standard was going to be, and it made things different, and it's been better ever since then. And I hope that that's the kind of thing that we see come out of this.
Yeah, and to further the point, it's important to understand that this stuff is dangerous. Even in your own faction, to talk about this stuff is dangerous. Like, we're catching heat from people in the Enlightened who think it's okay to not okay to talk about tools, right? Even the most egregious stuff, like, there's a lot of factional loyalty. So I think we can leave the site up. People can judge us by our actions and determine whether we are a safe place to whom to outlet these things. And we can commit to exposing the things on which we get strong evidence. But I don't know if there's room for a cross-faction working group. I'm going to elaborate just a little bit. I was running a 20-person cross-faction working group designed to suggest changes for refactoring the Guardian badge. And we started about 6 weeks ago. And when this information was released, it turned out 3 of the people in that room were on the list. And they wouldn't talk about it, not really, a little bit. We've got a ways to go before we're ready to have those kinds of conversations, I think. I think the community has some growing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be hard to police ourselves because you don't have to talk about it. You know, it's not the same as being a jerk to somebody in a hangout. It's not public, but we can hold ourselves accountable.
So, and y'all, you said just a little bit, some Resistance have talked to you about what's going on, like anything more than just deflecting and what, you know, saying ENL's doing it too? Like, is there any real, like, hey, this is screwed up kind of stuff or anything?
There is.
Yeah.
There is some good stuff. Like, if you look in public on G+, there are people coming out and owning it and saying, yeah, we need to not do this anymore. And there's a lot of the other stuff too. But I mean, Eric's right. It's definitely a spectrum. But there are Resistance agents who are taking the stand, and that's hard to do in that environment. Like, understand when everybody, like, when the pulse of the faction is to say that they're probably hashtag on the list, to speak out in a different way and say, yeah, I did that. I'm not going to do that anymore. I feel bad about it. Let's be better. That's a big deal, and those people should be commended.
And I think too, there's some people who were actually trying to do something good in there. I mean, to do it, they had to turn a blind eye to some pretty egregious stuff, to some not only, you know, terms of service violating, but also just general harassment. And so I don't know that somebody gets a pass on that, but I can understand the feeling of an agent who was like, I came in here to try to do a good thing. I wasn't going to change the Resistance culture myself, and I did the best with what I could. I would hope that there's still room for improvement there, but I get the feeling.
Do you have any theories as to why Niantic hasn't come out with a statement yet?
I think that they know it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think they're trying to get it right. And I have faith in them to do it, right? Like, they're thinking and they're working hard and they're having some really difficult conversations, and they're probably spending a lot of money on attorneys, and hopefully they're going to come out with something that we can believe in.
Yeah, I mean, their last fast reaction was criticized as a knee-jerk when there was issues with the anomaly scoring, so it doesn't surprise me that they're spending time on it. I feel like they could use an update at this point. Like at some point, the silence becomes its own problem. But I'm optimistic that the silence is positive.
Right. Well, with the last part, they said they would definitely, you know, talk with the POCs and stuff in future issues. But I guess they got to make sure they get the right POCs this time to talk through everything.
These are entirely internal Niantic conversations right now. I don't think that they're talking to any players at all, and I don't think that they should be. Like, they need to decide where they stand as a company on advancing this game, and it doesn't just apply to this game. I mean, understand, I think Pokemon Go is still the 6th most grossing game on the Play Store right now. Like, Niantic, they're going to be judged by the decisions they make here. This is a critical moment for a formative company.
Yeah, and talk about a game with cheaters. That Pokemon Go, holy crap! It's just all the cheaters work together. It's the difference.
I mean, they're fortunate, right? Like, they get the opportunity to do this, to get this right here, and then take that model and move it forward. So, you know, we're choosing to trust them.
Yeah, they know that Pokemon Go doesn't have the maturity of community that Ingress does. That it doesn't understand some of the lessons that have been learned here communally. But I think, obviously this isn't the way it has to be, but right now anyway, Ingress is the long-term motivator, right? We discover the Portal Network, we build the product. I don't think that Niantic has any intention of doing away with Ingress, which is something I hear from players constantly, but they know that we're important. They know that this game means a lot to a lot of people, and I think it holds the same sentimental place in their hearts that it does in ours.
Yeah, and to the people who may not deal with this political crap a bunch, it's important to understand, it's easy to think that we can't make a difference, that we can't do anything, that Niantic's never going to change anything, and that is not true. As the players in the sandbox game, we are the content. We're unpaid labor for Niantic because we discovered the Portal Network, which is the primary vehicle for their monetization engine. Without it, there would be no Pokemon Go. Think about that for a second. And now, with the release of OPR, we maintain the integrity of that network. They need us, and they know it, and they're going to get this right.
Well, and speaking of OPR, do you think this will have ripples down through OPR as well? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people on the list that are in there as well.
That's really hard to say. I'm not sure that they apply to each other. I mean, maybe somebody at Niantic might take that position, but we all judge each other on the quality of the portal submissions, right? So I don't know that somebody making a bad decision strategically or for guardian hunting means that they're unqualified to judge what's a good portal.
Right. It's just, there's a lot of comments about the portals that, and you take it with a grain of salt, because everybody thinks when their portal doesn't get submitted that it's because of the other side didn't do it. But there's a lot of people that suggest that players are downvoting or outright giving zeros or ones or whatever to portals where they know is a highly trafficked. You cheat in one place, you'll cheat in another, I guess is what I'm saying.
OPR is certainly vulnerable to wargaming, but it's, as far as we know, it's not vulnerable to gross institutional malfeasance. They're apples and oranges.
And eventually the system will, I think, adapt to that. So if you are factionally deciding which portals you approve, from what I understand, that reflects on your quality as a reviewer. So, yeah.
It's like being a bad Uber driver. Don't
Right.
do it.
Right, yeah.
Don't do it. So we kind of touched, we're going to get some hard-hitting questions in there, and Eric beat us to it, talking about his previous cheating ways. And but we do have some comments that I think people took aim at you, Charlie. I want to read a statement here and then get your take on it. And this is from the transcript that says, and this is from Charlie Arnold. It says, "To be clear, I think InfoWar is valid, and my intention was to use the data in order to disrupt resistance Orga and reduce their anomaly effectiveness." So, to me, this statement seems to suggest that you don't really care as much about the cheating as you do disrupting them for the anomaly or for other reasons like that. What would you say to that?
Yeah, that's valid. Those are things that I said. I was floating ideas, and they're things that I believed, and honestly, I do believe. I do think that that's a valid way to approach the problem. But there are several things that I'd note. First, that came up very early in the conversation, and I was not dictating a course of action. I was floating an idea. And if you read the transcript, you'll see that the 40 other smart, reasonable people that I brought into this at the get-go pretty much shot that down in a hurry. And that's why I brought them in. This problem needed the wisdom of crowds. Like, it was not, like, I'm glad that I wasn't the only one making those kinds of decisions, right? So thank goodness for the smart people around me who were like, no, Charlie, you're being an asshole, don't do that. Mm-hmm. And that's reflected in the action that we actually took, right? We released the information on a very neutral basis and as early as we could. So we didn't try to weaponize this against anomalies or anything else. Second, I said those things before we received the full scope of the data. This was before we understood how creepy and stalkery Riot.1 actually is. At that time, I just thought it was a guardian hunting tool. I didn't realize it was a comprehensive tool for tracking every waking aspect of a person's life as it impacts this game. Yeah, that's what I've got to say about that.
Now, in talking about that, the aspect like tracking, every part of someone's life, like, is there evidence that people were actually doing that, or are y'all just kind of saying that's the capabilities of it and they could have used it for those nefarious activities?
I mean, I don't want to put intention on people because it's hard to do that. There's a lot of things we don't know exactly about how it was used. And a lot of things that a person who just sat there and watched the intel could figure out on their own anyway, right? Like, those of us who don't have access to those tools still have a general sense of where people's houses are. We still have a general sense of, where they travel to and from work, their commutes and things. It's the kind of thing that you pick up in Ingress and that you, as a player who's played for more than 3 months, learn how to properly handle. That you're not going to do certain things. You're not going to be driving past someone's house. You're not going to be trying to get their identity or do any malicious things. It requires a certain, like, oh yeah, I am giving up my location data when I go out there, and I'm going to respect other people's location data when they get it. So I guess to answer the question more directly, I don't know of a single case for sure that used this data to stalk somebody. The fact that there was no restriction, that there was no kind of limitation put in place to prevent someone from using it appropriately, tells me that it was used inappropriately.
Yeah, and thank goodness we don't know any of those stories, right? I mean, if there was an effectively bad enough one, I'm sure it would have come out. So it's good that we don't. But again, come at it from the angle of a person just signing up for the game. You're saying, yes, whoever agreed to let Niantic know where I am when I do certain actions. And then there's a little bit of extra layer on that, like people can see your actions on the map and you're showing up in the comms. What you're not signing up to is anybody arbitrarily receiving access to a heat map of your daily, most frequent visited portals, the people with whom you most frequently associate, where you send comms messages from, etc. This is about like somebody appropriating the company to user relationship and completely abusing it.
I'd agree.
Well, and how much of that do you think actually falls on Niantic's shoulders to ensure their game doesn't display data in a way that's easily to detect someone's location? Because people are going to go outside the bounds of the TOC and try to get away with as much as they can sometimes.
So I think you can tell from their second product what their feelings about that are.
So would y'all be happy if they did something with chat to alleviate those issues?
The problem I would have with,
comms.
The problem I would have with that kind of a response is that it won't actually solve the issue. The scraping that's being done right now is through scanner emulation. So it looks just like somebody opening up a phone and watching the game. It actually won't help if they hide intel. And I think they know that. I think they can see from what we presented that at this point, shutting down all intel or something along those lines isn't a solution. There might be something nuanced they could do, maybe removing capture data or something, removing the player name. It's hard to say exactly what those might be, but I don't expect them to overreact on this, is what I'm saying.
The way we solve this problem is with culture change. We have to denormalize cheating. Niantic can start that process by proclaiming these are the clear rules. These are the things that are okay. These are the things that are not okay. They should also do whatever they can to try to shut this stuff down using their attorneys and the legal processes available to them. But we have to accept that it's going to continue. What we can do is take away the pervasiveness of it by changing the player base and changing the culture and denormalizing the problem, so that instead of people assuming cheating is going to happen and there's nothing we can do about it, they're instead calling it out and fixing it.
Right.
Well, you worried that they won't go through legal means, like, for instance, there's a lot of times people will make comments in, say, that the AMAs on Monday or something about, a local player does this or that, and inevitably the response is always, oh, well, you should contact your local authority. So do you think they're going to try to leave this in the hands of players? Well, if you think your data was violated, or someone's stalking you, go to the police. Don't come to us.
I think it comes back to what the product is. Right, Charlie? I mean, it's the portal network. Niantic has a copyright on that data, from what I understand. They have reasons to protect it and to show that they're protecting it. If they allow someone to create a whole secondary database of their primary product, I think that they will have problems beyond the player base. So I feel like they're incentivized in their own way to address the issue.
Yeah, this hits them in the place where it hurts most, the wallet.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any more hard-hitting questions?
Smurf or frog? No, that's...
Well, I wanted to ask you guys. So, are you completely happy with how the events of this leak and the whistleblowing and everything has taken place, or do you have regrets of anything throughout this whole process?
I can go. I made the decisions to involve my friends on this, and I asked them to follow me into this thing. And I don't regret asking them to do it. And I don't regret any of the things that we've done in the process of doing it. I think we did a fair, reasonable, responsible job. And I think anybody who reads that transcript will eventually come to agree, unless they already just hold a deeply entrenched position. And I understand some haters are going to hate. What I do regret is that people I love and admire are coming under direct attack from members of their own faction and members of the other faction in the form of doxing and cracking attempts and ostracism that are undeserved and unfair. There's some very hard conversations happening everywhere, but attacks on the people who did this work, to me, are completely unreasonable. So if I have a regret, it's that my friends are hurting.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few regrets. I won't pretend otherwise. I mean, overall, I feel we did a fair job with what we had. And some of those dictates, some of the things that ended up forcing our hand, were not things that we decided. We didn't go and find the leak. The leak came to us. We had a certain timetable at which we knew we had to do things. Those aren't necessarily things that we could have changed after the get-go. But I feel the same way. Like I feel bad that we had a room full of really smart people, really helpful, useful, fantastic people who are now kind of under threat, partly because of our own actions and partly because of my personal actions. And I don't feel like I'd be fair if I wasn't at least a little bit regretful about those things. I also wish that we just had more information, that we could have shown more cases of people clearly using the tool to cheat, and that we could have found some way to separate, the wheat from the chaff. in the Slack, and it wasn't possible with what we had.
I agree.
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing that hurts the most to me is it's like we've got this list of people that I know in our local area that now I'm going to look at twice, and you know, unfortunately, some of those I already looked at twice before this list came out, so it just kind of
reinforce
some of it. Yeah. But you still don't know, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know where to go really next. Like, what do y'all think is the next step for y'all and the community?
Go ahead, Eric.
Okay. So the Resistance players who are on the list, who feel like they're unfairly targeted, or fairly targeted, and now they just have made their bed and they're going to lie in it, need to realize that that's not how it has to be. Our own faction members who feel like they have, well, I've already gone down this road. I've been documented. I'm on somebody's list somewhere. It's just a matter of time that if that leaks. So then why give up my tools access? Why give up the thing that that gives me an edge when I don't have to? The game's more fun when you don't, and the game is more interesting when you have to do it yourself. If you're relying on automation, if you're, you've got that intel advantage, there's no challenge.
I think we need to just talk to each other and understand one another. I think it would help if the Resistance players who've been identified or people who have used those tools and feel hunted or outed could be in a less defensive place. That'd be good. To that end, I think it's good that the transcript got out. I mean, as much as it's been hurtful to my friends, I think it's good that it gave some people a place to sit with it and feel a little better.
Right.
It's at least enabled some conversations to happen. And I think the more conversations, honest, authentic conversations we can have about tools and what cheating is and why it's not okay and why it's bad for the game and for us, the better. I do think there need to be some real repercussions. I think that if the people who ran this network and have been identified as running this network, the people who were close to Niantic, saw this stuff happening and chose not to disclose it, I think if they don't see some repercussions as a consequence, then it's very unlikely that anything can actually change. There have to be some kind of consequences.
I agree.
But more than anything, let's change the culture. Let's get away from the pessimism and the negativity and influence Niantic to give us a more playable game.
Mm-hmm.
And I urge everybody to just remember that there's people behind these avatars that we are. The agents, we use agent term and it's so almost sterile and non-personal. But you got to remember, no matter how badass that name sounds after the agent, like Goonie Guy, that's pretty badass.
Yeah.
There's a human there. I actually changed my name. It's stupid in hindsight, but part of it was because of some hacking that was threatened. At some point, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try to keep my real name away from it a little bit, even though it's ridiculous. There's no way I can do that. But the fact is, we're all humans, no matter what side you're on. So remember that first before you do any attacks or any cheating, that any of that. So. Did you have something else you were trying to say? And I was going all over it.
No, I was just listening to a nice podcast. This is a pretty good one.
It's a pretty good one?
Yeah.
Aren't you glad you tuned in to listen?
Yeah, this is good.
So I'm sure we missed something, though.
That actually kind of reminds me of something that came up this week. As I was going through that list of what the features of Riot are and what the features of Radar are, I realized that a bunch of the stuff that the Resistance had accused me of over the years, the things that they were like, oh, you're using some kind of an automation system to pick up this or pick up that. You're using this data or that data. And I wasn't, over the years, I was just like, where is this stuff even coming from? There are features on the list of what Radar could do, of what Riot could do. And that's why they were accusing me, because there's this idea that the tools are at parity or something, and that everybody is cheating and everybody has access to the stuff. So if you don't have access, you're a chump. Well, if you use this stuff, you're the guy who runs the Steam engine, right? And nobody knows who the guy who ran the Steam engine was, but everybody remembers who John Henry was. So I challenge everybody listening to this: be John Henry. Don't be the guy who runs the Steam engine.
Good point. Well said. Yes, and I believe that too, that we should not normalize this. It should be fixed. The game was designed to play without all of these tools, without the extended intel, I guess you could say. And with all that stuff, it's just really no fun. You might as well play a different game, you know? And this is a game. It's fun to believe it's not a game. Sometimes it gets serious, like right now. But in the end, you know, cheating ruins games. It ruins every game, not just this one. So...
Well, and we've got amazing people on both sides of the net that play this game, and brilliant people on both sides, and they're going to come up with these really cool tools. And it fascinates me that people are, you know, making these amazing tools and things, and I mean, designing ways to get portals that you can't normally get to with these contraptions and just all this crazy stuff. Like,
you mean like real world tools?
Real world tools,
like
yeah.
MacGyver stuff. See,
MacGyver
that's cool.
stuff.
That's cool. That's not cheating.
So
900 megahertz microwave relay.
Right. That's awesome.
What if they just say, you know what? Make all the tools you want. We've changed our minds. You can scrape. You can do whatever. We're just going to change the data that we send when we feel like there's data that you're getting that you shouldn't get, and make the cool tools. Like, would that freak y'all out, or do you think that would be like a, hey, we'll get some cool stuff. Let's see what you can do.
It goes to what Charlie said before. It's a privacy issue.
Yeah.
But to me, that's a data issue on their end. If they're letting data that they shouldn't be letting get out, then that's kind of on them, to me.
So
it is.
If they yield an API, it's going to have to be a dramatically. I don't even know how they could successfully do it, because they would have to reinvent the way the data is disposed in order to anonymize the people who would be subjected to it. Like, I don't know if you could get anybody to play that game.
The challenge of the API is it's good enough to make it not worth running a bot network to scrape the system, but also be bad enough that you're not revealing the player's data. And it's not. There's no middle ground there. People either won't use it and they'll scrape anyway, or they will use it and it will be bad for all of us. So,
when we entered into this, I thought API was a good idea. It used to be something that I thought we should have, and now I've spent 5 long days thinking about this and almost nothing but this, and I realized that an API would be a disaster. We need culture change. Period. Yeah. Niantic needs to create clear rules, make it clear that scraping is not okay in a much more definitive way, and we need to foster a culture in which players care about each other and don't want to do this stuff to each other.
Yeah. And you truly feel that's possible in a game where you are honestly at war. I mean, the two factions are at war if you basically follow through the storyline. Like, do you think it's honestly possible to have harmony?
So Eric will tell you that I am hopelessly optimistic, and my local Resistance players will tell me that I'm dramatically anti-XFAC. But I don't think it's impossible to find a place that we can occupy as a culture of players where we don't want to be shitty to each other.
Right.
I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
I get together, there's a Resistance agent. The first day I started, I went to this Resistance agent's, the park next to his house, not knowing anything, and started shooting at portals, right? Because I was level 1. I immediately got so much blowback that my XM bar went to 0. Every time I fired a burster, it was hilarious. In retrospect, I had no idea what was happening at the time. But this guy was my direct nemesis, as close as I could have said I had one, and we occupied the same space. We fought over the portals back and forth. And there was a lot of grief in the beginning because that was what the culture was. Last year we had a cross-faction party at his house, and it was awesome. It was a great time, and It doesn't have to be that way.
And it starts with the company. Like as players, we can follow that message, but they've got to give us the impetus to do the work.
Yeah, I think it's great in theory, and I would love to see that, but I just think humans are humans, and it's going to be a hard road. I mean, it's just like, you know, it's the other day we were having a little back and forth with you know, me and another player. I'm not going to get into any names. You know, throwing fields, taking the fields down, throwing them back, and it was right after you know, we did some huge fields in the area, and I feel like I kind of got the better of this player, and then all of a sudden my Guardian goes down from them. Completely off the path they were going. And to me, I feel like that's just odd. And my brain goes straight to all this stuff going out. Is he using this? Blah, 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 blah. Maybe it was just happenstance, and I like to try to think of that. But it's just that human nature of when you think you can get one over on someone else when you just got, you know, the better of, basically, or something. You know, it's like you want to make yourself feel better. And so people will go in and do crap they're not supposed to do when they think it's on the edge, or they won't get caught and things like that. So I definitely hope there is a shift in attitude towards what tools you can use, and I agree completely that it starts with Niantic for them to come out with a hard stance on what's okay and what's not. Because I don't want to, I don't use it, but I would hate to not be able to use IITC if it was ever allowed. Right?
Yeah.
That thing you showed me, Eric, on your screen that day.
I didn't show you anything.
Yeah, it was you.
You know, to anybody who's coming at this from a more casual perspective, like, please disinvest yourself from the Guardian game. It's hopelessly broken.
Yeah.
And it's even more so now. Like, nobody's ever going to be able to kill a Guardian again and not get stared at. And that was the case before. So and if you choose to care about it, you're just setting yourself up. Like, to go throw a field, for Christ's sake, do anything that involves other players. It's a single player shit show inside an otherwise pretty good multiplayer strategic war game. Please ignore the Guardian dynamic.
It's a perverse incentive.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
Yeah.
going to go away.
Yeah, to me, it always seemed like a little mini game. You know, like when we used to play Team Fortress 2, and you'd be a sniper just to snipe the other sniper, and you just ignore everybody else, and it's just sniper wars between two people. That's what it feels like. It's like, and honestly, no one needs this badge. You don't need this badge. There's plenty of other badges there to get you Onyx. Badges. You don't need it, so just don't do it. I quit a year ago. I got mine busted a day before. I'm one of those guys, and I know who did it, and now I know how they did it, but I don't play that game anymore. I'm not a sniper. I don't want to kill the other sniper. I'll let him live to see another day.
I let mine decay after it hit platinum because I realized I didn't need it for 16, and I wasn't going to give somebody the satisfaction.
Nice.
A lot of us make those kind of decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
it's going to get changed, right? I mean, Niantic's committed to changing it, and it's now clear that they don't have any choice. So here's hoping that they make a decision that refactors Guardian into something that's not vulnerable to known cheats. It won't solve all of the problems. It won't solve the most egregious problems with the Riot.1 stalkerware, but it will take the fun out of that kind of cheating for a huge swath of players, and that's good. That will be good for the game.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that's something that we're all going to have to wait till 2.0, or you think there'll be something before then?
Well,
What do you think, Eric?
I don't know if Niantic's going to make a decision on Guardian. I mean, it seems like everything at this point has been said it will happen after 2.0. And we know that since they're emulating the scanners to do the scraping, that the people running Riot and other scrape networks are going to care about 2.0 because it's going to throw off all their code. I think it's going to be at 2.0, if I had to guess.
Seems likely. I mean, they were originally planning for the Vanguards to do that work, and the Vanguards are kind of compromised right now, so that's going to slow down any decisions that they might make.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything that we didn't touch on that, because there was, okay, I've got the full disclosure here. I know it's a little late in the show because we're about to wrap this up soon. But so I tried to read the whole transcript, and I thought I was like 75% done, and went to eat dinner, and I came back and I started scrolling, and it scrolls up like because the bottom, you know, it appears after you scroll, and I was only like 20. I got about halfway through, so I missed like
typing it.
The meat. So yeah, I am not envious of y'all from having to type of those, but y'all did have a lion's share of those messages. I think, you know, 5 times the next people you two. Y'all two chat a lot. Y'all type away.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Because we're the most taciturn, reserved people ever there were.
That's what I've noticed. So, what did I miss?
3 messages, so I get 3 times as many, and when the resistance eventually see my chat logs.
Yeah. Look, you know what? It was a big deal, and we knew it was a big deal, and we sunk our time and energy into something that we thought we could use to achieve culture change. The amount of investment you see from us in that document is representative of how important we thought the work was.
Is there anything else we missed that y'all wanted to say, Eric?
Sorry that I swore at the resistance in private.
I did it in public one day, but those kids were looking at me funny.
I've sworn a dozen times in this conversation. I'm a profane guy, and I'm okay with that. If anybody's offended by my language, they can
go colonize the moon.
Send me a message. We can talk about it civilly.
It's a grapefruit colony thing. Colonizing the moon.
Colonize the moon, baby.
But, and Charlie, anything, last words from you? Anything?
No, I feel good about what we've discussed. If anything, I think you guys could have beat us up a little bit more, but it's fine. I mean, I'm sure we'll get plenty of that from everywhere else. So anybody who has further questions, please don't hesitate to contact me on Telegram at Semiotiq with a Q. Semiotiq. I'll talk to anyone.
Contact Charlie on Telegram.
I'll send you directly to Eric. I'm really just his secretary. That was my role in this.
And definitely, if there's any resistance, especially people who were on the list using Riot that want to get their story out on the show, we'd definitely talk to you as well.
That would be great. Yeah. I would love to hear the other side of this.
And then maybe after that, we could get one where, you know, 2 and then 2 resistance, and try to have a civil discourse together. Is that how you say that?
Totally on board for that.
So I think that'd be awesome. And we definitely appreciate Charlie and Eric, both of y'all joining us on the show and talking to us.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And we respect all the work that you guys did and put into this and got to get the word out. And it's certainly exciting on our side, on the gamers side, who really didn't see this coming and didn't know anything about it and just saw it one day, and here we are talking to you guys. And we have a lot in common, obviously, because we want to get the word out, or else we wouldn't be doing the show and doing the video that kind of covered exactly what you had. It was the TLDR version, is what people like to call the video. But anyway, and thanks a lot for being on the show. This was fun.
Thanks for your time. It's been lovely to have the opportunity.
I like to think we're in the same place. We just saw it 48 hours before you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
could have been anybody.
Next time we'll be in the chat room. No, don't put us in there. No.
Thanks very much, guys.
Well, that was pretty interesting. It was really good to hear from those 2 gents.
Yeah, I thought that was very good. I thought I did very well. I hope everybody stuck around, listened to the whole thing, or watched the entire thing here on the Agent Academy. And so this was episode 0. We are going to start this show. Next episode will be a proper format. We'll have different segments.
What number will that be?
That will be number uno.
Uno. That comes after 0.
Yep, 0 plus 1. It's
Yeah.
1.
That's some difficult math there.
So yeah, and you can subscribe to that. We'll have all the stuff in the links down below.
Yeah, and be sure if you have any questions yourself about this episode or any of the future ones you want to ask us questions or have comments, you can leave those, of course, on our Twitter, which is Agent Academy, or you can leave us voicemail at speakpipe.com/Agent Academy, and we'll put your voice on the next episode with your question or your comment.
Or your love song.
We love songs.
You can sing to us. Who knows? Whatever you want. And so yeah, join us. Subscribe if you'd like to hear more stuff like this, and get out there and move. Is that what they say?
Nah, something like that.
All
The
right.
world around you is filled with Agent Academy stuff. So watch it all. Subscribe to it all.
Yep. See you next time.
Bye-bye.